Captain Sarah Chen stood at the command center of the UES Aegis, Earth's most advanced warship, as it prepared for its first deep space trial. The massive vessel represented humanity's greatest technological achievement, a fusion of quantum computing, dark matter manipulation, and consciousness-driven interfaces that even its creators didn't fully understand. Final systems check complete, Captain. Lieutenant Marcus Rodriguez reported from his neural interface station. The dark matter core is stable at 97% efficiency. Sarah nodded, her neural implants processing the flood of data from the ship's systems. After decades of relative isolation, humanity had decided to venture into the galaxy not as peaceful explorers, but as a force capable of defending Earth's interests. The Aegis was their insurance policy. Begin transition to hyperspace, Sarah commanded. Let's see what this ship can really do. The massive warship's engines hummed to life, dark matter tendrils wrapping around its quantum crystalline hull. But before they could initiate the jump, proximity alerts blared across the bridge. Multiple contacts. Lieutenant Emma Walsh shouted from Tactical. 15 vessels just dropped out of FTL. Configuration unknown. Definitely not human. Sarah's combat training kicked in instantly. Battle stations. Bring all defensive systems online but keep weapons cold. Let's not start an interstellar incident if we can avoid it. The alien vessels moved with precise coordination, arranging themselves in an attack pattern around the Aegis. Their ships were organic-looking, with flowing lines and bioluminescent hulls that pulsed with energy. They're broadcasting, Communications Officer Patil announced. Universal translator processing. Got it. A harsh, clicking voice filled the bridge. Unidentified vessel, you have entered restricted Vraxian space. Power down immediately and prepare for boarding and inspection. Resistance will result in immediate destruction. Sarah kept her voice steady as she responded. This is Captain Sarah Chen of the United Earth ship Aegis. We are conducting peaceful trial runs in what we understood to be neutral space. We mean no hostile intent. Your vessel's energy signature exceeds anything in our database, the alien voice replied. Submit to immediate inspection or face the consequences. Sarah exchanged glances with her senior staff. The Aegis's true capabilities were classified at the highest levels. Allowing aliens to inspect it was out of the question. I apologize, but we cannot allow boarding of this vessel, she replied firmly. However, we are willing to provide basic scan data and establish diplomatic dialogue. The alien response was immediate. Your cooperation is not optional. You've faced the might of the Vraxian Empire. Prepare to be boarded. Energy signatures flared across the alien fleet as weapon systems powered up. Sarah felt a smile touch her lips. They had no idea what they were dealing with. All hands, she announced shipwide. Prepare for First Contact Protocol Omega. Let's show our new friends why humanity developed the Aegis in the first place. The alien vessels launched their first salvos, energy beams, and plasma torpedoes, streaking toward the Earth ship. They never reached their target. The attack simply ceased to exist several kilometers from the Aegis's hull, absorbed by defensive systems that operated on principles the aliens couldn't comprehend. No return fire, Sarah ordered as her crew tensed at their stations. Let them wear themselves out. Enable the passive scanning suite. Let's see what we can learn while they're putting on their light show. For 10 minutes, the alien fleet bombarded the Aegis with everything they had. When they finally ceased fire, Sarah could hear the confusion in the Vraxian commander's voice. Impossible. Your defensive capabilities. What are you? We are human, Sarah replied simply. And we would still prefer to discuss this peacefully. However, you should know that my tactical officer has already mapped every weakness in your ship's defensive systems. We could have destroyed your entire fleet several times over during your attack. That's not a threat. It's simply context for the diplomatic discussion I hope we can now have as equals. A long silence followed, broken only by the subtle hum of the Aegis's dark matter core. Finally, the alien commander spoke again. Their tone dramatically altered. Perhaps we should discuss this further. Our Emperor will want to know more about your species. Sarah allowed herself a small smile. First contact hadn't gone quite as planned, but the outcome was what mattered. Humanity had announced its presence in the galaxy not through aggression or submission, but through unshakable strength. We would be honored to begin diplomatic relations, she replied. Shall we discuss the arrangements? As her crew began coordinating the details, Sarah looked out at the alien fleet, their bioluminescent hulls now seeming less threatening and more fascinating. The galaxy was about to change forever, and humanity would help shape that change from a position of unprecedented strength. Supreme Commander Kextar of the Vraxian Empire paced in his private chamber aboard the flagship Eternal Dominion, his crystalline exoskeleton reflecting the soft bioluminescence of the living walls. The data from their encounter with the human vessel Aegis scrolled endlessly through his neural feeds, each new analysis more disturbing than the last. Explain this to me again, he demanded, addressing the holographic presence of Chief Science Officer Velna. Her form shimmered with uncertainty, all four of her primary arms moving in agitation patterns. Supreme Commander, the human vessel defies our understanding of physics, she began. Their hull appears to be a quantum crystalline matrix we've never encountered before. It doesn't just deflect energy. It seems to delete it from existence. Our weapons simply ceased to be when they approached the ship. And their power source. That's even more impossible. Velma's voice trembled slightly. They're using what appears to be controlled dark matter, but at energy levels that should collapse into a black hole. Somehow, they've not only stabilized it, but are using it to power systems we can barely detect, let alone understand. A priority alert flashed across Kextar's neural interface. The human vessel was hailing them again. With a thought, he opened the channel, and Captain Chen's image appeared before him. Supreme Commander, she greeted him with that unsettling human expression they called a smile. Have your scientists finished their initial analysis? You knew we were scanning you, Kextar stated. It wasn't a question. Of course, just as we've been scanning you. Your bioorganic technology is fascinating, particularly the neural interface systems you use to control your ships. Though I must say, your cybersecurity protocols could use some updating. Kextar felt his secondary heart skip a beat. You've penetrated our systems. Only the non-critical ones. As a precaution, Chen replied casually. We had to ensure you weren't calling for reinforcements, though we did notice the automated distress beacon you attempted to launch. Don't worry. We contained the signal. The Supreme Commander's mind raced. They had neutralized a quantum-encrypted transmission without anyone noticing. What are you? He found himself asking. We're a species that learned early to prepare for the worst while hoping for the best, Chen answered. Earth's history is filled with conflicts that nearly destroyed us. When we finally unified and looked to the stars, we decided that we would never again be at the mercy of a technologically superior force. A new data packet arrived through the communication channel. I'm sending you some basic information about human history and technological development, Chen continued. Nothing classified, but enough to help you understand who we are and why we built the Aegis. Kextar gestured, and the data flowed through his neural interface. What he saw made his exoskeleton vibrate with shock. The humans had gone from primitive chemical rockets to dark matter manipulation in less than 2 centuries. Their technological progression was exponential, driven by something his species had never quite mastered: the ability to make radical conceptual leaps rather than following established research paths. Your species, he said slowly, you don't just improve technology. You reimagine it completely. It's a human trait, Chen agreed. We're not satisfied with understanding how something works. We want to know why it works that way, and if there might be a completely different approach. The Aegis isn't just a warship. It's a proof of concept for dozens of technologies that rewrite the rules of physics as your science understands them. A priority alert suddenly flashed across Kextar's neural feed. The Imperial Palace was demanding an immediate report. The Supreme Commander felt his heart sink. The Imperial Council would never accept the existence of a species with such advanced technology. They would demand immediate action to neutralize the potential threat. "Captain Chen," he said carefully, "I must warn you. The Imperial Council, they will not react well to this information. They may order aggressive action, regardless of my recommendations." "We expected something like that," Chen replied, and for the first time, Kextar heard genuine regret in her voice. "Which is why you should know that the Aegis isn't alone out here. We launched our first dark matter beacon network 6 months ago. There are currently 37 other human vessels within immediate response range, all with the same capabilities as the Aegis." Kextar's primary heart nearly stopped. 37. "Humanity doesn't believe in fair fights, Supreme Commander. We believe in peace through unassailable strength. The choice facing your empire isn't whether to accept our existence, it's whether to accept our friendship." As if to emphasize her point, new data began flowing through their sensors. The human ships were out there, previously invisible to their scans, arranged in a complex three-dimensional grid that effectively surrounded the entire Vraxian battle fleet. Looking at the tactical display, Kextar realized that the galaxy as they knew it had ended the moment the Aegis appeared in their space. The only question now was what would rise to replace it. The holographic war room aboard the Imperial flagship pulsed with crimson morning lights as Emperor Vexthor received the latest intelligence briefing. His entire military command staff stood rigid, their crystalline exoskeletons reflecting the emergency signals. "The humans have deployed their entire fleet." The Emperor's voice carried the weight of a civilization that had dominated this sector of space for millennia. "No, Your Eminence," Fleet Admiral Zarkax replied, his neural feeds projecting the latest tactical analysis. "Based on their communications, these 37 ships represent less than 10% of their total fleet strength. They refer to this as their diplomatic contingent." The Emperor's secondary arms twitched, a sign of extreme agitation. "And what of the boarding operation?" Supreme Commander Kextar stepped forward, dreading this moment. "Your Eminence, I must advise against." "The operation is already underway," Admiral Zarkax interrupted. "Our most advanced stealth pods launched 10 minutes ago. Even if the humans can detect them, they can't stop all 12 simultaneously." Aboard the Aegis, Captain Sarah Chen watched the incoming stealth pods on her neural display with a mixture of disappointment and resignation. "They really aren't going to back down, are they?" "Negative, Captain," Lieutenant Walsh replied from Tactical. "The pods are using some kind of bioorganic cloaking technology. Quite impressive. Actually, we'd have trouble detecting them if we hadn't already mapped their entire technological base. Time to intercept. 3 minutes to hull contact. Should I activate the defense grid?" Sarah considered her options. The diplomatic approach had failed, but there was still a chance to turn this into a teaching moment. "No. Let them reach the hull. Activate Protocol Prometheus." The bridge crew exchanged knowing looks. Protocol Prometheus was one of the Aegis's more creative defensive measures. The Vraxian stealth pods, each carrying a team of elite Imperial commandos, reached the Aegis's crystalline hull without incident. Their bioorganic anchors attached successfully, and cutting beams began working to create entry points. Inside the lead pod, Commander Rixtol felt a surge of triumph. "Hull breach in 30 seconds, he reported back to the flagship. No response from the human vessel. Their defense systems must be." He never finished the sentence. The quantum crystalline hull beneath their pods suddenly became transparent, giving them a clear view into the ship's interior. But what they saw defied comprehension. The interior space seemed to fold in on itself, creating impossible geometries that made their brains scream in protest. Corridors twisted through dimensions that shouldn't exist, and rooms occupied the same space without intersecting. "By the First Empire," someone whispered. "What kind of demons are these humans?" "Not demons," Captain Chen's voice came through their comm systems, calm and almost sympathetic. Just a species that learned to think beyond conventional limitations. What you're seeing is a practical application of quantum spatial manipulation. We call it four-dimensional engineering. In the Imperial War Room, the Emperor watched in horror as his elite commando teams began reporting impossible things. The humans weren't just using advanced technology. They were warping the fabric of reality itself. Your boarding teams are currently safe. Chen's voice now echoed through the Imperial command channel. The spatial distortions are contained, but I should mention that your cutting tools have activated our hull's secondary defense systems. You have about 30 seconds before the quantum crystalline structure begins growing into your pods. I suggest you withdraw immediately. Supreme Commander Kextar watched as the human ship's hull began to glow with an inner light, spreading toward the attachment points of the stealth pods. "Get them out," he shouted. "Emergency recall, now." The pods barely managed to disengage before the crystalline growth could reach them. As they retreated, the Aegis's hull returned to its normal state, showing no sign that anything unusual had occurred. "A fascinating attempt," Chen commented on the open channel. "Your stealth technology really is remarkable. Under other circumstances, we'd be very interested in discussing an exchange of technical data." However, her voice hardened slightly. "The next breach attempt will trigger automatic defensive protocols. I won't be able to guarantee the safety of your personnel." The Emperor's primary heart was racing as he processed the implications. These humans hadn't just surpassed Vraxian technology. They operated on principles that made their most advanced systems look primitive. "Your Eminence," Kextar said quietly, "I believe we must consider the possibility that military action against the humans would be inadvisable." Before the Emperor could respond, a new alert flashed across every neural feed in the command center. The humans were powering up something in their fleet, creating energy readings that dwarfed anything their sensors could properly measure. In that moment, as reality itself seemed to bend around the human ships, the Emperor realized that the galaxy's balance of power had already shifted. The only question was whether the Vraxian Empire would adapt or break against this new force in the universe. Admiral Zarkax watched in stunned silence as the energy readings from the human fleet continued to climb beyond anything their sensors could comprehend. The Aegis and its sister ships had begun to emit a strange luminescence that seemed to bend the light around them, creating aureoles of impossible colors. "By all that's sacred," the Emperor whispered, his crystalline form trembling. "What are they doing?" The answer came in the form of Captain Chen's voice, broadcasting across all frequencies. "We're activating our dimensional anchor system. Please don't be alarmed. This is purely defensive. We'd rather avoid any more misunderstandings." Suddenly, every Vraxian ship's navigation system began screaming alerts. The space around their fleet was changing, twisting in ways that defied natural law. Chief Science Officer Velna's hologram flickered frantically as she reported. "The humans, they're creating localized space-time distortions. Our quantum drive systems can't establish a stable field. We're effectively locked in normal space. They've trapped us." The Emperor's voice carried equal parts fury and fear. "No, Your Eminence," Velna replied, her voice trembling. "They've done something far more profound. They've altered the underlying quantum structure of this entire sector. Even if we could escape, our faster-than-light technology wouldn't work anywhere within 50 light-years of this position." On the bridge of the Aegis, Sarah Chen watched the Vraxian fleet's reactions through her neural interface. "Status of the dimensional anchor network?" she asked. "Operating at full efficiency, Captain," Lieutenant Rodriguez reported. "The quantum matrix is stable and self-sustaining. We've effectively rewritten the local laws of physics. Their FTL technology is now about as useful as a combustion engine in space." Sarah nodded. It was time to demonstrate just how far humanity had advanced. "Open a channel to the Emperor's flagship." Full holographic projection. In the Imperial War Room, the air suddenly shimmered, and Captain Chen appeared as if she were standing among them. The quality of the projection was unlike anything the Vraxians had ever seen. She seemed completely solid, real enough to touch. "Your Imperial Majesty," she said, bowing slightly. "I apologize for the dramatic demonstration, but we needed to make our position clear. The dimensional anchor system is just one of many technologies we've developed to ensure our survival in a potentially hostile universe." The Emperor rose from his throne, his crystalline form casting fractured reflections. "You claim this is defensive. You've crippled our most fundamental technology." "Temporarily," Sarah corrected. "The effect will dissipate once we deactivate the system. But yes, it is defensive. Just as your empire has bioorganic technology, we chose to focus on dimensional engineering. We learned to manipulate the fabric of space-time itself." She gestured, and a holographic display appeared, showing the true extent of human technological development. The Vraxians watched in astonishment as it revealed capabilities they had thought impossible. Ships that could phase through solid matter, weapons that could selectively erase portions of space-time, and defensive systems that operated on principles their science couldn't even begin to explain. "This is why we built the Aegis-class ships," Sarah continued. "Not to conquer or dominate, but to ensure that humanity would never again be at the mercy of a technologically superior force. We've seen our own history, how stronger civilizations often subjugate weaker ones. We decided that would never be our fate." Supreme Commander Kextar stepped forward, his tactical mind racing. "But if you have such power, why reveal yourselves to us at all? Why not simply remain hidden?" Sarah's expression softened. "Because isolation leads to stagnation. We believe in cooperation, in the exchange of ideas and technologies. The Vraxian Empire's bioorganic engineering is fascinating to us. We could learn from each other, advance together, rather than falling into the old patterns of dominance and submission." The Emperor sank back onto his throne, his exoskeleton dimming as he processed the implications. "You offer cooperation from a position of absolute superiority." "We offer cooperation from a position of security," Sarah corrected. "Your empire has ruled this sector for millennia. You've accumulated wisdom and experience we don't have. We're not interested in dismantling what you've built. We want to help it grow, to evolve into something greater." As if to emphasize her point, the human ships suddenly shifted, their quantum crystalline hulls becoming transparent to reveal the impossible spaces within. It was a deliberate display of vulnerability, showing the Vraxians exactly what they were dealing with. In that moment, as the Emperor stared at the reality-defying human vessels, he realized that his empire stood at a crossroads. They could resist this new power and be broken, or embrace it and be transformed. The galaxy would never be the same either way. 3 months after the first encounter between the UES Aegis and the Vraxian Empire, the imperial capital world of Vrax Prime hosted an unprecedented gathering. The massive crystalline spires of the Imperial Palace now contained something never before seen in its millennia of existence: a human embassy. Captain Sarah Chen stood at the observation deck of the newly constructed quantum crystalline wing, a fusion of human and Vraxian engineering that symbolized their emerging partnership. Beside her, Supreme Commander Kextar watched ships from both species moving through the crowded orbital lanes. "Your merchant vessels have already revolutionized our economic system," Kextar noted, his exoskeleton reflecting the golden light of Vrax Prime's twin suns. "The ability to phase through normal space rather than using traditional FTL routes. Our trading guilds are still adapting to the possibilities." Sarah smiled, watching a human transport demonstrate exactly that capability, briefly shifting out of normal spacetime to bypass a congested shipping lane. "And your bioorganic computing systems have given us entirely new perspectives on artificial intelligence. The merger of organic and quantum processing. Our scientists are calling it a paradigm shift." In the 3 months since the standoff, both civilizations had discovered that their technologies, rather than being incompatible, were remarkably complementary. Human mastery of dimensional engineering combined with Braxian bioorganic systems had opened up entirely new fields of scientific development. "The Emperor wishes to know," Kextar said carefully, "if humanity would consider a more formal alliance, not submission or integration, but true partnership." Before Sarah could respond, her neural interface pinged with a priority message from Earth. The news made her catch her breath. It seems our leadership had the same idea. The United Earth Council just approved the Galactic Cooperation Initiative. She turned to face the Supreme Commander fully. "We're prepared to share our dimensional engineering technology with the Empire under certain conditions. In return, we'd like full access to your bioorganic research." "The Imperial Council will never agree to such an exchange," Kextar said, but his tone was amused. "They will demand at least 3 additional trade concessions and probably insist on joint military exercises." "Already anticipated," Sarah replied with a grin. "Earth is prepared to establish joint research facilities, combined fleet operations, and a shared defense protocol. We've learned from our own history that true security comes from cooperation, not isolation." Their conversation was interrupted by a brilliant flash from orbit. A new ship had emerged from dimensional shift, the UES Prometheus, humanity's latest achievement. Unlike the warships of the Aegis class, Prometheus was built for pure scientific research, its quantum crystalline hull incorporating Braxian bioorganic components. "The first of the new joint development vessels," Sarah explained, "capable of exploring not just space, but the dimensions beyond it. Your scientists' insights helped us stabilize the quantum matrix in ways we never imagined possible." Kextar's exoskeleton pulsed with colors that indicated deep satisfaction. "And your dimensional engineering finally solved our century-old problem with neural interface lag. Together, we're achieving what neither of our species could manage alone." A soft chime indicated the approach of another figure, Emperor Vexthor himself, his crystalline form now incorporating subtle patterns that mimicked human quantum technology. The symbolic fusion had become fashionable among the imperial court. "Captain Chen," the Emperor greeted her warmly. "Or should I say Ambassador Chen? The official notification of your appointment just arrived." Sarah bowed slightly, hiding her surprise. She hadn't expected the promotion to be announced so soon. "Your Majesty honors me. I hope to continue fostering understanding between our peoples." "Understanding?" The Emperor's tone carried genuine amusement. "My dear Ambassador, you've done far more than that. You've shown us a future we never imagined possible. The old empire was built on power and dominance. But this new alliance," he gestured to the Prometheus hanging in orbit, its impossible hull gleaming with the combined achievement of 2 civilizations. "This is built on something far stronger." As if to emphasize his point, a group of young Braxian scientists hurried past, engaged in animated discussion with their human counterparts about the theoretical applications of bioorganic quantum computing. The scene would have been unthinkable just months ago. Sarah watched them go, feeling the weight of the moment. Humanity had entered the galactic stage prepared for conflict, but found something far more valuable: partnership. They had changed the galaxy not through force of arms, but by demonstrating that true strength comes from the ability to adapt, to cooperate, to imagine possibilities beyond the obvious. The Prometheus initiated its first dimensional survey, its hybrid systems reaching into realms of existence that neither humans nor Braxians could have explored alone. As the ship's sensors fed data back to the joint research teams, Sarah realized that this was just the beginning. Together, their civilizations would reshape not just the galaxy, but reality itself. And they would do it not as conquerors or subjects, but as equals united in the greatest adventure their species had ever known.